Well, I was supposed to be out here at 5:30 in the morning at a Northfield Park. I'm just about to leave, and it turns out it's harder to get up really early in the morning when all the horses make breaks the night before. Now, obviously, all the horses didn't make breaks. Amazon Dragon, Brenda's horse, Race Good over here, finished second in 53 and 1. First Glance was awesome last night, winning again in 155. Who else do we have? No, there's someone else. First Glance. Oh, Brave World was a little flat last night. Looked like you might have been a little sick. That always happens. Let's give them a break because they're racing tough. Give them a week off, and then they bounce back and get sick. It's a frustrating thing sometimes. But I know Harry's going to get him looked at today, but I'm pretty sure after what I saw last night, probably a little bit sick. And then we come to my wonderful drives. Now, I bought a brand new pair of gloves. They're called Soft Touch gloves to drive in last night. The touch was not that soft. 3 breaks for 3 very different reasons, but nevertheless breaks, as I said. So we'll start with Perfect Record. If I had driven him like a horse that could make a break at the 5/8 pole, he wouldn't have made a break at the 5/8 pole. He, I put him in gear coming to the half. He got a pretty soft half. I just let him start to float up into top gear. As we started into the backstretch, I just tapped him on the tail a couple of times with the whip, and I think he just went to switch leads. If you watch closely, when he starts into the backstretch, he kind of switches his lead. So that means he'll shift his hind end over from the middle part of the bike to running out a little bit in the straightaways. Now, obviously, we can combat that with a gating strap or a gating pole. Those are just like they sound. So the way a bike goes, it goes out like that. Well, you can put a strap or a pole, either one of them, that can go straight back. So it diminishes the room a horse can move in the race bike. That sounds like it might be super helpful, but you run into other problems. So there's really a fine line there. You don't want to put it too tight to them, but at the same time, when he runs out, that's when he touches that left hind. So you can see where he did it. About 3 strides into the backstretch, maybe 4. You can see me tap him on the tail, and you can see him just kind of bunny hop just a hair on that left hind. Looks like he might have just stung himself on the pasture and just give himself a little pop, and he rolled off. So in Ohio, he would have to qualify, but if we take him to Pennsylvania for whatever reason, I believe that's a rule in Ontario also now, which I believe is 100% the right rule. You make a break off a qualifier, they revert back to the clean line in 30 days rule. So regardless, break or no break, if he has a clean line, so a flat mile in 30 days, he doesn't have to qualify. So we'll take him over to the Meadows next week. I'm just trying to see what day, if I can go, to be honest, because he is a little tricky. Last night was my fault. I think I just took him for granted, right? This is a horse I was very careful with his whole life, but I took him for granted last night, and it cost me and it cost you, to be quite frank. So Perfect Record's break was as much my fault as his. The next one's My Jazz. Now, I'll tell you what. And a lot of people message me, say, oh, poor Jazz, she's so sore now. And listen, I need to be very clear about one thing. My Jazz is not that sore anymore. She spent the whole year sore. Her foot was killing her. Her left ankle is a problem that we're managing. But at no point last night was My Jazz lame. At no point did any sort of lameness go into her making a break. Again, her break was very simple. She got away 9th, where she hates getting away anyway. But those are good horses last night. Designer specs, My Jazz will never beat. Ever, ever, ever beat. It just won't happen. And when it comes to some of the other fillies in there, the filly that beat her, they might have bought her from Ontario, but she's much better right now, that Muscle Mass filly. There's some salty horses in there. So Jazz gets away 9th. Right away, she's disinterested. She hates getting away 9th. She's hated getting away last her entire life, whether it was training or racing. I got away 9th, and I wanted to keep her close to the horse in front of her, because I know she doesn't like being where she's at. So I kept her up as we got to that turn past the quarter pole. So going into the turn past the quarter pole, they came back to her a little bit, at least the last 3 did, and she got up close to the horse in front of her, and she just jostled herself for a step. Now, we've been letting her hobbles out quite a bit longer. She never wore them tight, nor did she like them tight, but there has to be that happy medium between they're not there and helping her at all, and they're a little too tight. And I let them out a little bit because she'd warmed up so well with the hobbles the way they were. And I think just as we got to that turn, they just come back to her a bit. She just kind of She just kind of bunched up a little bit and rolled off. But make no mistake, my Jazz's break last night had zero to do with lameness. And the reason I'm stating this so emphatically was I did get a couple of emails from people saying, one gentleman, a client of ours, said, you know, my Jazz doesn't know whether stable anything. Why don't we just turn her out? I'm not racing. You're right. My Jazz owes the stable zero at all. Nothing. But at the same time, I understand where you're coming from, because you've heard me say this 100 times this year. My Jazz is trying to work through some stuff, and she's really hurting, and she's sore, and this, that, because she was all year. She did have issues, and she will. That left ankle is going to need managing all the time. Her front feet, we just took the plates off of her front feet. Now, did that play a role? I don't think so. I don't think it did. Before, she had full suede shoes on, but she had, we called them spider plates in Ontario. I don't know what they call them here. But it's literally a plate, an aluminum plate that fits under the shoe, and it has this snowflake look to it, just for concussion. We had just taken them off because her feet are getting that good right now and are getting back to normal where we took them off. But again, you know, just to reiterate, my Jazz's break had nothing to do with any sort of lameness last night, just so we're clear. And then So-and-Sue, she's a lunatic, but there is something bothering in her mouth. I know Jason had the 2 veterinarians look at her, but veterinarians aren't technically dentists. They can't open their mouth, look in there, examine each tooth. There is something going on in her mouth. You may say, Anthony, why don't you just get a dentist? That's great. But at this point, I may as well try and get an alien as a dentist to look at her mouth. It's hard to find them over here. I was talking to a gentleman after the race, because he had heard me, Jason and I, you know, I said to him when I pulled up, I said, you need to get a dentist to look at this filly immediately. And he said, Anthony, I've called 5. One guy can come this week. Another guy was supposed to come and then had to cancel last minute. I wouldn't have entered her had I thought nobody was coming, but it's just the way it played out, which is fine. That happens. But I think what needs to happen is she needs to have a dentist look at her. I could be wrong, but I am 90% sure there is something going on in her mouth. She gets on the right line. The further we go, the more she gets on it. I see, though, she did mark her right hind boot up last night, and she did put a little bump on her right hind ankle last night also. So we definitely have to get that looked at and get that fixed. Here is Michael Carter. It was funny, we saw Michael Carter is, I have to believe, who else would that horse be named after, though?
I don't know. Good question.
So we bought a horse called Carter Michael Dio. Carter Michael Dio the other day, and this is Michael Carter, but not Dio.
Close enough, right?
It's pretty amazing, though.
I'm pretty sad you brought him to Ontario.
I know. I was going to bring him here. You know what? I'm partially glad I didn't bring him here, though, because he's a big boy, and he might have been a little difficult for the guys here to break.
Okay.
But
there you go.
You will see him next year.
All right.
All right, man. Thanks very much.
Bye.
It's our money man. The checks from last week. Before I leave to go home, he asked me to wait. Not bad last week. You know, one thing, we don't pull our socks up. There'll be less of these coming next week. So, listen, guys, I'm going to be honest with you. When it comes to our in-house lunatic in So-and-Sue, you're just going to have to hang on. You know, this is a filly that can trot fast. That she's not a killer. She's a nice filly. I think we're gonna be all right with her. But don't read into this in any way. But you know, it's gonna take some time to get this filly under control. I can see what's happening. I mean, when we start going up to the gate, I was a little closer to the gate than I wanted to be when we started up last night, but she felt comfortable. And then as we get in the turn, she started to get a little hot. And then when she starts to really hog down on her check and start rooting her head, something's bothering her. You know, if I take a hold of her and she's thrown out, we have a dog chain in her mouth, and that could be it. But she was fine in Dayton. Much better. Very easy to work with in Dayton. But when it came to her home track, well, now it's her home track. When it came to her home track here, she was pretty hard to deal with. So, you know, there will be a point in time in the near future where we do have her hung up 100% correctly. but it's hard also. You can't, you guys know when it comes to horses, a lot of it is trial and error, but you can't use that, you can't employ that trial and error method with a horse that's really hot, right? Because you go to turn her to score down and she wants to go 100 miles an hour. You can't do that all the time, right? Then she just continues to go 100 miles an hour all the time. We're in a position now where we're trying to keep her comfortable. Ooh, yeah. One horse leaving, Jason McGinnis's barn. Silent Assassin is the name of the filly.
Silent Assassin.
Yes, sir. Yeah, me too. We're gonna have to what? Yeah, really. All right, guys, thanks. Yeah, you too. So, as I said, just hold on. We'll get her straightened away. We'll get her fixed up. But, you know, obviously last night was not what you want to see. So I get that. I understand. But for my partners out there on So and Sue, better days ahead. We'll get her right. It's not going to be your last break. I can guarantee you that. But we'll hope to mitigate them in the future. So that is your update. I'm a little more chipper today. You didn't want an update from me last night. I was in no form to be doing updates last night. But today is a better day. Myself and Silent Assassin are heading back to Ontario. Heading back to Ontario right now. I'll be back here at Northfield Park on Saturday evening for I'm a Lovely Lady and well, I'm not driving Purple Aura. I'm driving 1, 2, Skip a Few. Those three are in Saturday evening. Yes, drew a pretty decent class actually for the Open on Sunday evening, which is okay because he's in race 4. So I'll get out of here at 7. I'll actually be back in Ontario before midnight on Sunday evening, and then I am back home. I want to say for a week or 10 days because Amy's going to be in New Jersey with 3 Point Blue Chip, but I'll definitely be home for a few days. If I do skip over to drive Perfect Record next week, it will only be for the afternoon. It'll be like I never left. I'll be right back. I'll be back at home in my bed by 10:30, by 10 o'clock on whatever evening it is that horse races. So I'll see how that goes, but for now, a long road, 4.5 hours back to Ontario. I will talk to you all soon. Take care.